And something else that's happening at the moment is the Riversymposium. It's hosted by the International RiverFoundation. And I'd like to introduce you to my first guest. This year's Riversymposium in Brisbane will showcase innovative programs, host interactive sessions and celebrate success from around the world that are transforming their rivers into resilient rivers. It's the work of the International RiverFoundation, a globally recognised organisation aimed at restoring and protecting the world's rivers. Eva Abal is the chair of the foundation and has been instrumental in pulling together this year's Riversymposium. Eva, hello and congratulations.
Thanks, Kelly. Hello. We are very excited.
Look, the theme for this year's International Riversymposium is resilient rivers. What makes a river resilient?
So when you look at the definition of resilience, it's really the capability of our rivers to withstand disturbances such as floods and droughts, not only to withstand but to recover from that, and we hope to actually improve after all of that impact.
Is the road to resilience a complex journey?
You could say it is quite complicated, and hence when you look at the Resilient Rivers Blueprint that we launched this morning, the vision is really to enable the resilience of the rivers by understanding the complexity of the stressors or the pressures that the rivers are facing now in light of global change. When we talk about resilience, we talk about social, economic, and environmental interdependencies, and that's where it becomes quite complicated.
With that, do you find that rivers around the world have similar stresses on them, or is it very individual depending where they are?
So in general, when you look at global change, we definitely are facing similar challenges of pressures of increasing population, big droughts, big flood events, development, encroachment of different types of land uses. So it's very similar. But there are some specificities, and I like what you said before about Queensland rivers. Our rivers make who we are, and that's what it is. And I like the other message you have, that let's sing for the rivers. It's actually giving our rivers a voice.
What impact are disturbances such as extreme weather events having on our waterways?
So when you look at Queensland, if I could describe very briefly or maybe very simply the type of rainfall pattern that we have what we call as a long period without any rain. And then suddenly we have this big flood event coming. So that's what we call as a very peakier flow.
Yep.
With climate change, that's going to get peakier. That means we will have longer periods of drought, and we have periods then of intense flow. And the flows can be very intense, that some of our land and the basins around the river could hardly capture that intense flow. And not only that, some of them would reset our rivers. Now, reset might be good for some rivers, and in some cases it might also be bad. And this is where the specificity of rivers come.
Well, it seems to me that Queensland has nearly always, once white settlement happened, had that reliance on, as you say, water, nothing, huge flood or cyclone. And that's pretty much where we get our water. It's not like other places where they rely on consistent rainfall over their winter, for example. We're relying in many places on huge dumps of water over a couple of months through cyclones usually, or lows.
Yes, and so that's basically why the message is to slow down the water if we can. And how do we slow that down? Riparian vegetation, and ensuring that somehow our river still meanders naturally. Go back to the natural hydrology of our rivers so that we actually slow down the river rather than just a straight flush. That means it allows the land to capture that into our groundwater, recharge our aquifers, and then have water for the times when it's quite dry.
Eva, when it comes to the protection and resilience of the world's rivers, are there many stories of success and celebration on a local or global scale?
Actually, you're spot on there. We are celebrating tomorrow is the 20th anniversary of the award of the International River Prize. And the International River Prize is by far one of the biggest environmental award that is given to best practice, best management on rivers, being 20 years now, that means we have a record of at least 20 River Prize winners who actually are exemplar in the way they manage the rivers. But not only that, they also come with 3 or 2 other finalists. So there are some success stories around the world of rivers that have actually been restored and or protected to ensure that we have rivers for future generations.
How much of those, sort of from memory, rely on the actions of local communities or on government? Does it come down in the end to what local communities will do with their waterways?
And having been on the judging panel before I took on this role, the key, I think the major element of one of our criteria is really about partnerships. So the protection and or restoration of rivers actually rely a lot on partnerships, government, industry, and the community. And these are the essence of what makes the river actually flourish for the community.
In 2007, the Brisbane Declaration was announced, and this was at the 2007 Riversymposium, setting out a global action agenda that addressed the urgent need to protect river flows globally. So what's been the result of that 12 years on?
So 12 years on, and you're right about that 9-point global action agenda that was embedded in that declaration. There has been another declaration, so it was actually refined in 2017, and basically it recognized the strong social and cultural dimensions of environmental flows. So before, it was just environmental flows itself as a physical process that our rivers are very much relying on. But then the 2017 actually emphasized that we really need to address the social and the cultural aspects of environmental flows. And that means then the call has become more urgent. So it's a call for urgency to address environmental flows and to embed environmental flows in the traditional integrated water resource management planning, as well as achieving the SDG goals for water.
So can you expand on that a little as to why does it make it more important, or why are people called to action more effectively when you actually add in cultural and traditional flows?
It recognized that there's that relationship between the river per se and the dependencies of the community on the river. So basically, the river is being seen as having a value in its own right, which is a social and cultural value rather than just an environmental value. And without flows, a river is nothing. So we have seen a lot of rivers around the world where really you wouldn't even know if they are rivers. You'd think of them as being part of the landscape because they have no flows, which is kind of sad.
You've had some delegates here already who've taken a tour of Brisbane via the river. How did it go?
I think they love Brisbane. This morning...
What's not to love?
Of course,
Eva
that's
Abal.
why we're here. So this morning we had the Director General of the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy welcome them to Queensland. Of course, we have Australian Government, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade welcome them to Australia. But I think for me, living in Brisbane, it was actually the chair, Fiona Hammond from Brisbane City Council, who really spoke passionately about how lovely Brisbane is and how lovely the river makes Brisbane become a river city.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I originally came from Melbourne, and they kind of talk about the Yarra, but it's a creek. Let's be fair, it's not a river, and maybe at one end it kind of turns into one a little bit as it goes back out into Port Phillip Bay. But this river does add something to Brisbane, and for those cities those regional cities we're going to hear about tonight on the night the rivers sing, that they are integral to their communities as well. We can never underestimate how much life beautiful rivers give to the communities they serve and that serve them.
That's right. And we actually tomorrow, there's a very special session called Valuation of the Iconic Value of Brisbane River. So basically we look at what we call as an invisible value of the river. What makes Brisbane become very special? Because of Brisbane River, and what is it in Brisbane River? How much value do we associate with that?
Well, it has been wonderful meeting you. Eva, thank you so much. Eva Abal is chair of the International RiverFoundation, a globally recognised organisation aimed at restoring and protecting the world's rivers, and has been instrumental in pulling together this year's River Symposium.